it is obvious that the government of India made a fundamental error in thinking that they could engage in supporting criminal activity against Canadians here on Canadian soil, whether it be murders or extortion or other violent acts. It is absolutely unacceptable for any country, any democracy that upholds the rule of law. That is why we have taken such significant measures, why the RCMP chose to come out today and disrupt the pattern of Indian diplomats collecting through questionable and illegal means information on Canadian citizens that were then fed to criminal organizations that would then take violent actions from extortion to murder against Canadians. No country, particularly not a democracy that upholds the rule of law, can accept this fundamental violation of its sovereignty. Canada fully accepts and respects the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of India. We expect India to do the same. In this case, they did not. The sovereignty and territorial integrity of India. We expect the Indian government to do the same for Canada. As Prime Minister, it is my responsibility to provide reassurance to those who are feeling their safety has been compromised, but most importantly, it is my responsibility to take action and to never hesitate in doing what is necessary to protect Canadians. That is precisely what we are doing today. I'll now turn it over to Minister Leblanc to provide additional details on these developments. Dominic.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Bonjour à tous.
Hello, everyone. The serious conclusions presented today by the Commissioner of the RCMP are the result of many months of investigation and tireless work, obviously on the part of the RCMP, but also in cooperation with other police forces right across the country, in large cities like Toronto, Surrey, Edmonton, right across Canada, and police officers in the provinces as well. I would like to thank all of those who have played a critical role in this such a complex investigation.
Particularly Indo-Canadians and members of the Sikh community, this news will be understandably very upsetting. The actions that are alleged to have taken place on Canadian soil are indeed a grave violation of our sovereignty and of Canada's rule of law. But I also hope that Canadians find relief in knowing that our law enforcement and national security agencies are working to keep them safe and to hold to account those who seek to harm Canadians. I strongly encourage all Canadians, and in particular leaders in the South Asian and particularly the Sikh communities, to continue to work with law enforcement officials. For generations, people from every corner of the globe have come to Canada seeking a better life, precisely because they felt that the Canadian government would duly fulfill one of our most fundamental duties, to keep them safe. And our law enforcement agencies work every day to uphold that promise. And I once again want to thank the RCMP and their law enforcement partners for their important work in this matter. Je vais maintenant passer la parole.
I'd now like to turn it over to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who will be able to tell you more about actions taken by Canada in response to the findings of the RCMP. Mélanie, over to you.
Merci, Dominique.
Thank you, Dominique.
So, as I've said from the beginning, a year ago, we have three clear priorities when it comes to these incidents targeting Canadian citizens. First, We will seek the truth, that the police force are allowed to carry out their work and hold those responsible to account. Second, of course, to protect Canadian safety, and thirdly, to defend Canada's sovereignty. Based on information provided to Global Affairs Canada by the RCMP, we formally requested that India waive diplomatic immunity for 6 individuals based here in Canada and for India to cooperate in the investigation. This was done so that these individuals could be questioned in relation to the ongoing RCMP investigation into a number of violent incidents targeting members of the South Asian community, particularly the Sikh community, in many cities across the country. And you heard the Minister of Public Safety, my dear colleague and friend Dom Leblanc, mentioning different cities across the country. Regrettably, as India did not agree, and given the ongoing public safety concerns for Canadians, Canada served notices of expulsions to 6 diplomats and consular officials early this morning. Subsequent to those notices, India announced it would withdraw its officials. To be clear, we're not seeking diplomatic confrontation with India, but we will not sit quietly as agents of any country are linked to efforts to threaten, harass, or even kill Canadians, period. Canada is guided by the rule of law. We follow the Vienna Convention at all times, and we expect, of course, India to do the same as well. We will always continue to ask for India's cooperation to the investigation. I did so formally again by being in contact with the Foreign Minister of India, Foreign Minister Jaishankar, earlier today. And I've been also in contact with all my counterparts from the Five Eyes, so Foreign Minister Lamy from the UK, Secretary of State Blinken from the US, Penny Wong, also the Minister of Foreign Affairs from Australia, and Winston Peters, who's the Minister of Foreign Affairs of New Zealand. Comme je l'ai dit depuis le début,
as I've been saying from the outset, we have 3 clear priorities when it comes to violent incidents in Canada. First of all, looking for the truth. We want to ensure that police can do their work, and basically we have to ensure that those responsible are held to account. We want to protect Canadians, number 2, and 3, defend our sovereignty. Based on information given to Global Affairs Canada by the RCMP, we officially served notices of expulsion to 6 individuals and have asked India to cooperate. This was done so that people could be questioned as part of the RCMP investigation with respect to a number of violent incidences targeting members of the South Asian community and the Sikh community. Unfortunately, India has refused to cooperate, and there are continued risks for Canadians. And therefore, this morning, we served notices of expulsion to 6 diplomats here in Canada. Following those notices, India announced it was withdrawing its officials. To be clear, we are not seeking a diplomatic confrontation with India, but we will not remain silent based on the information that a country, whichever country it may be, has tried to intimidate or kill Canadians. Canada is guided by the rule of law. Of course, we will always respect the Vienna Convention, and we expect India to do the same. We will continue to ask India to cooperate with the investigation, and I have been in contact with the Indian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister Jaishankar, earlier today, and I've also been in contact with ministers from the Five Eyes countries, the UK, US, Australia, and New Zealand.
Bonjour, Monsieur Trudeau. En marge
Yes,
du
Mr.
sommet au
Trudeau.
Laos la semaine dernière, vous avez
At
rencontré.
the summit over the weekend, you met with Prime Minister Modi. Obviously, you were not authorized to go into detail at that point, but perhaps you could tell us what you said to him and what his reaction was. Well, when I spoke to Prime Minister Modi in Laos a couple of days ago, I pointed out that the meeting in Singapore with our Canadian officials was important and should be taken seriously. He expressed that he was aware of that meeting and he would respond in due time.
At the end of last week, I highlighted how incredibly important the meeting between our national security advisors in Singapore this weekend was going to be. He told me that he was aware of that meeting. I impressed upon him that it needed to be taken very, very seriously.
This morning, the RCMP held a press conference and talked about extortion, and you mentioned this as well. These are accusations that seem to suggest an autocratic regime. Now, what do you make of the fact that India is acting in this way? Well, I believe India has made a monumental mistake in choosing to use their diplomats and organized crime to attack Canadians, to come and ensure that some Canadians don't feel safe in their own country, and even more creating acts of violence against them. That is unacceptable. And our goal today, and the goal of the RCMP, was to try and prevent this process by which diplomats were collecting information about Canadians and then passing that on to organized crime to attack Canadians. And obviously, we had to upset that process, and that is why the RCMP decided to take its action today.
I think it is obvious that the government of India made a fundamental error in thinking that they could engage in supporting criminal activity against Canadians here on Canadian soil, whether it be murders or extortion or other violent acts. It is absolutely unacceptable for any country, any democracy that upholds the rule of law. That is why we have taken such significant measures, why the RCMP chose to come out today and disrupt the pattern of Indian diplomats collecting through questionable and illegal means information on Canadian citizens that were then fed to criminal organizations that would then take violent actions from extortion to murder against Canadians. No country, particularly not a democracy that upholds the rule of law, can accept this fundamental violation of its sovereignty. Canada fully accepts and respects the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of India. We expect India to do the same. In this case, they did not.
Next question. Tana McJones, Toronto Star. Sir, given the magnitude of the diplomatic disruption that's happened now, I wonder if you can give us some clarity, because while I think I'm trying to read into what you're saying, that these 6 diplomats were sharing information with others. Are those others, the criminal organizations, the so-called agents of India, or are you saying the actual diplomats and consular officials?
I had a brief exchange with Prime Minister Modi in which I emphasized that there is work that we need to do. I won't go into details of what we talked about, but what I've said many times is that the safety of Canadians and upholding the rule of law is one of the fundamental responsibilities of any Canadian government, and that's what I'll stay focused on. Yes, we need to continue to develop our trade ties and our people-to-people ties, but there are real issues that we need to solve for, and we're going to stay focused on that.
Ashley Burke, CBC News. Prime Minister, in English and French, you've gone public with your allegations that there were credible allegations linking India to the killing of a Canadian Sikh activist. Do you still believe that India has stopped allegedly, or do you believe that India has allegedly stopped trying to kill its enemies in Canada?
Keeping Canadians safe is one of the fundamental jobs of any Canadian government. And ensuring public safety was why I shared those credible allegations a year ago, and why since then we have been working diligently to do everything we can to keep Canadians safe now and into the future by ensuring that the rule of law is followed and upheld, and that the appropriate actions are being taken. I won't go into anything further now, but Canadians can know and can be confident that this is an issue that has remained at the forefront of my mind and my responsibilities as leader since the very beginning.
Minister Jolie said that there still is a threat. Do you believe that too? We
are seeing troubling patterns of violence affecting Indo-Canadians right across the country over the past number of months, and this is an issue that I can assure you that we will continue to be very, very seized with, and we will ensure that our responsible authorities continue to do the right work.
Judy Schwen with CTV News. U.S. presidential candidate and former President Donald Trump announced yesterday that he